Hey guys, hopefully you had a fantastic, nice, relaxing break. So we got to get back in the flow of things. We're still remote, but we're gonna still work to wrap up the rest of this quarter of World Cultures. Okay, so we have 2 weeks left of World Cultures, 2 weeks left in the quarter, and with those 2 weeks, we're gonna start your research project. A couple quick things first. If you see here that China summative repair. So if you did not like the score you got in your China summative, it was posted online yesterday on Gradebook or Progress Book. You have a point recovery opportunity. It's optional, as it says on Google Classroom. So if you're not interested, don't do it. But if you are interested in recovering points, it's not extra credit, it's recovering points that you did not get. So you can take a look at that and see me with any questions. Those would be due at latest Friday. So quickly about those, once you turn it in, that's the version I grade, and you don't get any do-overs because it's already kind of like a second chance of what was an open note test essentially. So I'm not going to keep on giving opportunities for that. So that's one thing. And then, make sure if you are interested and you want point recovery that you do make sure it's turning it on time. Your fact of the day to get us going for thinking about different places around the world. There are over 6,500 spoken languages in the world today. However, 2,000 of those languages have less than 1,000 speakers. So that there's a lot of languages that are spoken that not a lot of people speak them, basically, is what that's saying. But anyway, okay, so your project is about you choosing a country to research and telling me about it, okay? So I'm giving you a lot of structure in what you are doing and what you're looking into, but essentially you pick the country and you let me know about it. So this is going to be presented to me in a slideshow. So basically what you're making is a slideshow. So a couple of do's and don'ts about slideshows. That's what I want to go over. So these are some of the things I'm going to be looking for as I grade your slideshow. So first, do not write down lengthy sentences or paragraphs, okay? You want to use concise bullet points. So basically, you don't want a full sentence structure because I'm giving you a 50-word maximum cutoff. So basically, you want to provide the information, but do it in a concise, short, and to the point manner. That's a bulletin. So you don't technically need a bullet. So this is a bullet here. You don't technically need that. What you need is how it's phrased, short to the point. You're not giving me an entire sentence. You're just kind of getting to the point, the meat of the information, so to speak, okay? So 50-word maximum on the slide. If you go over 50 words, you're going to be docked points because I don't want you just writing everything. I want you to be able to, this is kind of an academic challenge where you have to use your brains to simplify the information. Do include pictures. So this is going to be a visual slideshow. So every slide should have at least one picture related, obviously, to what's being talked about on the picture. So the 50% rule here is your good rule of thumb is that the picture is using about half or more of the slide, or your pictures. So you can have several pictures, but basically when you think about your slide and how it's set up, you have the space on your slide. Half or more of that slide should be dedicated to pictures. Okay, that's kind of like a children's, you can think of a children's picture book. I kind of think about that. We have big pictures, a lot of visual, and a few snippets of writing as you read through it. Okay. Do not include words you can't define. So I, having done, teaching for years now, I kind of know what a seventh grader's vocabulary is. So when you're using words you don't know, it kind of screams that you plagiarize. So that's just copying and pasting information from websites. That's something we shouldn't be doing. But plagiarism also is a legal thing where you basically, the legal thing is that you're using someone else's words as your own. So I'm not really necessarily concerned about the legal aspect, although that's of course not good, but the learning aspect. If you're just copying and pasting like entire sentences, entire concepts, you're not really learning. Part of this, like I said, is simplifying the information and putting it in your own words. Do not include too much information and or pictures. Sorry if this is cut off a little bit. So basically, you can be under 50 words, okay, for your slide, but you're trying to cover too many different topics. So keep it simple in a manner of speaking. Yes, you're covering different things, but don't do too much. Don't try to cover too much. Keep it simple on the topics, fairly straightforward. Remember, this is all about your country in one go, so you can't get into too much little nitty-gritty detail, so to speak. Okay, try to find information that is informative, as in it presents the information, but also interesting. Okay, a lot of students kind of miss that mark where you get to pick and choose and find stuff about a country that you pick, and they go for the bare bones, like straightforward facts, where there's a lot of information, interesting information about most all countries out there. So don't just find the bare bone facts, find interesting information about that. Do not use backgrounds if it then makes your text or pictures hard to see. All that means is you have to be easily able to read the text, and you have to be easily able to read or see most all of the picture. They have to balance with each other. Again, going back to that children's book idea, you're never going to read a children's book and be like, oh, I'm really having trouble reading this. They have balance. The visuals, children's book have pictures, a lot of pictures, but they can also, whatever text they have, it's easy to read, right? Because it would be kind of not a very good book if it's hard to read. So it's got to be a balance of those two things. The text you have, easy to read, but the pictures, you're not unnecessarily covering up important parts or important things in pictures. Do check to see if your picture is right and related. We had a lot of actually problems with this first quarter. You can't just go on Google and type in what you think you want to see and then expect Google to give you exactly the right stuff. Google is a search engine. It's not a human being providing you information, okay? So some students put way too much trust in what they get in a Google search result. Your first step in researching should not be an image search, because that's just a whole bunch of images. You don't know what's right or wrong. Your first step is to find out what is right, what is wrong, and then follow it up with a Google image search so that you can see, oh, well, of these pictures, these are right. And we'll talk about that in a little bit here. Include websites used in speaker notes. So this is a great way for you just to have the information or whatever website you used in this for you to reference in the future. So there's a little section underneath the slides called speaker notes, okay? If you don't see it, you're probably going to have to include the option to turn the speaker notes on visibly. So it's not the slide itself, it's the space underneath the slide, and you just copy and paste the website you use. So like, oh, I found some good information on this website, copy and paste the website, okay? You can multiple websites if you use multiple websites or just one, but there should be at least one for every slide because you're always getting the information from somewhere. Then finally, do have captions for pictures. So in our remote setting in a normal year, I would typically have students present these in front of the class. We don't really have that option. So you want to, any picture you have, you have a little caption telling what the picture is. So that way, you might know that the picture is relevant, but if I just look at a picture, I might not necessarily know that. So you have a little caption. Okay. Now the captions are part of the word count. So you can't just say, oh, it's a caption, I don't have to worry about it. Titles and captions are part of your overall 50 word count. And some students forget about that, or they kind of stop thinking about that. It's all written words. If it's written on the slide somewhere, then it counts towards your 50 written word maximum. And definitely read through and check your presentation. That's proofreading. Unfortunately, most of the points I find that I deduct from these, and I've said this before, is capitalization and spelling, which shouldn't be happening. You were sitting in front of the computer on the internet. You can double check everything and make sure nothing is misspelled and nothing that should be capitalized is not capitalized, because you can just double check it. So proofread, basically. And then you also want to proofread to make sure, hey, what you thought was visible or easy to read is still visible and easy to read. So there's a lot here. This is basically how I'm looking at each slide. So there are 10 slides and for a total of 50 points. So the reason why we're spending 2 weeks on this, basically the remaining quarter, is although it's a fairly straightforward concept, there's a lot writing on it, so to speak. So every slide is graded separately, basically. So one slide can't really affect another slide, more or less. So every slide gets anywhere from a 0 to a 6, okay? 0 points, no one should be getting a 0. That means I asked for a slide and it was just missing, okay? And then 4 or lower is that I find mistakes, okay? So you don't have complete information, you used unrelated or inaccurate information or pictures, you have spelling and capitalization issues, so if I see something misspelled, you lost a point, you went over your 50 written word limit, you didn't include a picture, hard to see, stuff that we mentioned, no caption, no website given, doesn't follow rubric guidelines below. So the rubric is posted on your Google Classroom in country research materials. You have to be looking at the rubric constantly so you're not doing these things. So a 5 is solid. A 5 on a slide is effective, concise, accurate information, okay? You have a relevant picture or pictures, so the pictures tie into your information. You keep under 50 written words, your pictures have captions, your website is copied into the speaker notes below slide. So those are all things I'm asking you for. So basically, there's nothing wrong with the 5. So if you did some quick math here and you said, well, there's 10 slides, and if a 5 is nothing's wrong, and that's 50 points, what are the 6s for? The 6s are for over the top. I can tell a student really learned and has really kind of, as they say, possessed the information. Like they took control and ownership of the information they were learning about the country. Now, the way to show me that is you would record yourself giving your presentation. If you're not interested in a 6, you don't have to record your presentation. If you are interested in maybe getting a few 6s, which is the only time in my class that I offer extra credits, that is to say points over the possible maximum, right? You would have to record yourself giving the presentation. And basically what I want to see is something like this, where I see your face, like kind of like you're seeing your bottom right here of me, and the slides at the same time. Okay. And that way I can see, hey, they're not just reading off the slide. They actually know this, right? Because if you're just reading off the slide, do you know it? Maybe, but I can't tell, because ownership of information means you can talk about information, not just read it. Okay. So basically, if you're interested in getting a few 6s or possibility of extra credit, reach out to me so we can clarify with each other about what my expectations are for 6. Because I don't want you to just do it and cross your finger and say, well, I hope this is what he's looking for. You should talk to me sometime in the next week or so. Okay. Country choices in the world. There's about 195 countries. Okay. The only countries you can't do and pick to research is Israel, because we've done Israel, China, right? Because we've done China, and the United States. We live here. So the point of this class is not to learn about where we live. The point of this class is to learn about other places around the world, okay? So other than that, the world is your oyster as far as what countries you pick to research, okay? Now, you can work with a partner, okay? Or 2 other partners. So basically, the biggest group should be a group of 3, okay? No more than 3. Couple things about partners. They have to be in the same class as you. So who's ever in your remote class these next 2 weeks, like we go to the same meeting time, that would have to be a person, because I'm not going to leave it up to, it's hard to communicate and correspond if you never see these people. So at least when we have our meetings every other day, you'll be able to kind of talk to them. Okay. So they have to be in the same class. If you want a partner, no one has to work with partners, and they should be reliable. I don't want to have to deal as like a, couple therapy for a partnership because you're not getting along, or one person's not doing the work they said they were going to do. So basically, in a nutshell, this is 50 points all at once. Don't be pressured to work with someone who you don't think is going to do a good job, or don't ask to work with someone who you don't think is going to be doing a good job. They might be your best friend in the world, but doesn't mean that they might be reliable for a 50-point project. Okay, so keep that in mind. So partners are okay, but don't give yourself grief because you're picking someone just because you think they're funny, but then you realize they're not doing any work, right? And they have to be in the same class. So examples of do's and don'ts. So these are real student slides from years past that I've used their slides as examples of do's and don'ts. So first one here, places to see, things to do. One of the most popular tourist attractions, they're talking about South Korea. So based off what I've talked about already, I'm going to give you a second here to think about what is wrong with this slide. Okay, so there's a couple things wrong with this slide and why I would deduct points. First thing wrong is that you can probably tell pretty quickly this is over 50 words, okay? So they went over 50 words. Second thing wrong, though, it's also in paragraphs and sentences. I do not want sentences, okay? You can clearly tell if something's bulleted, short, you've shortened up the information so it's just quick, and whether you just wrote in a sentence. And sometimes students just take off the period and say, oh, it's not a sentence because I don't have a period. Well, it's still a sentence. You just didn't do the period. I want short, concise information. That'll make it easier to keep under the 50 words. So they wrote in paragraphs and sentences. They're over 50 words. Now, this picture down here, it's grainy and it looks not good. But technically, they did have a picture. It does not meet the 50% rule, though. Okay? Half of your slide, basically, or very close to half or more of your slide should be dedicated to visual, either one picture or multiple pictures. So basically, they gave most of their slide to text, which they didn't learn about because you can probably tell they copied and pasted it, and blank spaces, all right? So 3 things wrong with this slide. So this slide would be, you started a 5, wrote in paragraphs and sentences, over 50 words, visual, not very big. So this slide was a 2 out of 5, all right? This would be a good version of that slide. So Chinjin Waterfall, it's the same thing. It's a better picture. The slide's taking up most of the space. Basically, the caption is in almost a way the title. What am I looking at? It's the Chinjin Waterfall. Then you have the translation and why you would go there. Okay, so this is the difference between, hey, you don't need all those words. Simplify. Okay, put it in your own words. Kappelbrook. Okay, again, sorry if it's cut off a little bit here, but Kappelbrook is in the city of Lucerne at night, and there's a date right over here. So the Kappelbrook was built in 1333, and in 1993, part of the bridge burned down. So this is basically, they're saying a place they would recommend people to go check out. It's a covered bridge over the waterway. That's basically the thing they're talking about here. Here's the thing. You take a look at this. It doesn't look like a lot. I think this is decently bulleted. It's a little wordy, honestly, for bulleted information. Bulleted information should be more concise. And because of that, this slide is actually over 50 words. So the one thing wrong with this slide is that it did go over 50 words. This would be, again, simplify. 1333, built to protect the city. 1993, part burned down and paintings were lost to the fire. And then you have more space to actually look at what they're talking about, which is this covered bridge, okay, which is, 700 years old, whatever. Carpathian Mountains. So they have a nice, pretty picture. They're telling us this is the Carpathian Mountains. They're telling us the reason to go there. It's a nice place to ski, sled, and snowboard. So the problem with this picture is actually what I was talking about before. This is not the Carpathian Mountains. So this is actually kind of a recognizable mountain in Canada. Carpathian Mountains are supposed to be in Europe. So Canada, North America, Carpathian Mountains, Europe. So they use the wrong picture. Too much trust in Google is a problem with this. So you do a Google image search. They might have searched Carpathian Mountains. They're like, oh, here's a picture of a mountain. I'm going to use it. No, you have to be accurate in the visuals you're giving. You can't just use any picture you click on. It's got to be the right picture, right? Let me show you how easy it is to do this. So I was very specific about what I was looking up here. I said Chinese Congress building in Beijing, right? You know exactly. I want the Congress building in Beijing, China. The very first thing that came up was the U.S. Capitol building. That's not right. Google is a machine. It is not a human being that's giving you accurate responses necessarily, okay? It's the search algorithm. So actually a lot of these are wrong. This is wrong, obviously. This is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong, right? This is wrong. So we have a lot. When I was clear to Google about what I wanted to see. They're suggestions, okay? So Google is a machine. You have to be the human brain thinking about this information and making sure that picture is correct. So do your research beforehand so that when you get to this, you know which ones are right or wrong already. So your first slide is an example, okay? Basically, real quickly, what you should notice is that in country research materials here, you have a rubric. I would recommend that you print this out because it's a lot easier to look at it, print it out, than it is to jump around with tabs. However, this is how you know what is expected on each slide. So you have 2 slides that are covering information about intro. You have 3 slides on the government, 3 slides. Places to see, things to do, 2 slides. Traditions, custom, 3 slides. So all 10. And it gets more specific about on each slide what I want to see. Okay. So slide 1 is the official country name and the widely used country name and the location map. So location map is, I can tell where in the world the country is. Okay. Slide 2, picture of the country, flag, and you tell me all about the flag. Okay. So going back here, by using the United States, so this has the official country name, the United States of America. Also used country names, USA, America, US of A, America, okay? If you are working with partners, you should also have your names on the slideshow so that I know whose work I'm grading, okay? Because, again, if you work with partners, it's a shared score. No one gets more, no one gets less. Everyone gets the same score for their product they give me, okay? So the problem is with this is the third bullet point here. I asked for a location map. This does not show me where in the world the United States is. It just shows me the United States. So this slide would have actually be doctor point. This version would be better. Okay, the United States of America, I can see where in the world your country is. So that's what you want to do. Official name, widely used country name, where your country is located, and if you're working with partners, all of your partners' names so I know whose work I'm grading, okay? Then the flag. You got to tell me about the flag. So in the case of the United States, it's actually a pretty simple design. 50 stars for 50 current states, 13 stripes representing the 13 original colonies. However, some flags are not that simple. So this is a different flag. You have 3 colors, but you also have all the crest that you must tell me about. I want to know what the bird is. I want to know what the spears are. I want to know what the boat is. I want to know what the sun is there for, okay? So it's not just part of the flag. You're responsible for telling me about all the flag. And that can get a little tricky if you when you're considering you have to do that in 50 words or less, okay? So consider word usage and being careful about that. Going back to the rubric, the next 3 slides are about government. The first slide, you're supposed to tell me in your country who has the most political power and how long is that person allowed to serve in office. Include the picture of the person you're talking about. So, in the United States, we have I accidentally covered his picture up, but currently it's Donald Trump, right? And that's going to be true for the next 18 days. Then Joseph Biden is elected technically in 2020, but he starts in 2021. So U.S. president is elected for a 4-year term, can serve 2 terms, okay? That's it in a nutshell. It's not too complicated. You can add some more interesting information if you want to try to push towards a 6 but that's basically what I'm asking. Who is the person with the most political power? In the United States, it's the president. How long are they allowed to serve? Well, here's the president. They're allowed to serve, get elected 1 4-year term, but they can get elected again, but that's your cutoff. Next thing you're looking at. 2, how is the legislative branch structured? So, legislative branch, group of people who make and pass laws. They meet somewhere. So I wanted the picture, one of the pictures you should be showing me is where they meet, the outside of the building. Okay. In the United States, It's the U.S. Capitol building, right? And the title again almost serves as the caption. What am I seeing? I'm seeing the U.S. Capitol building. This is a place where 535 members of Congress meet. So they have a Congress, and it's two houses. It's clear, House of Representatives and the Senate. Okay. So I'm not going to go through all examples of slides, but keep in mind we should be reading and understanding these as we go. I'll talk about more of these later on as we make progress. Slide 3 about government is the latest big news from the country. Key thing about that is it's got to be big news. Big news means it affects a lot of people's lives, okay? So thousands of people. And sometimes students are just like, oh, people died. It doesn't have to be about people dying. It just has to be like people's lives are being affected by something big that's going on in the country. Not there was a cat stuck up a tree or there's a car chase. Something that's happening that's affecting a lot of people's lives. It should not mainly be about COVID, okay? So that's a little bit of a challenge, but something that's very doable. So I'm going to leave it here, and that should be enough information to get you going, okay? Never hesitate to reach out with questions or issues, and I'm really looking forward to seeing these.